Galactic sentient broadcast. Target, planet Earth. Begin invasion in 3, 2, 1.
Alright, I'm back again. I'm on my way home. Let's try to do one more question or group of questions. Let's see. These are from Samuel Derham from the channels of the same name. My 3 questions. What are 3 good things you learned about yourself during this journey? Good things, I would say that I'm comfortable, I guess, being on the internets, the YouTubes, without too much fear of scrutiny. I mean, like, you just get on there and you make a video, and I feel like I'm comfortable enough in my skin to do that without, freaking out over anything. Another good thing I learned is that I don't know. I like a lot of not weird. I think I've learned that I'm kind of a contrarian about things. I like to follow the opposite of the popular trends in books or things like that. Just in some aspects of things, I don't feel the need to follow the herd, and which in turn affects my own success. But I like to carve my own path, and maybe that's a good thing. I mean, people need variety. That's what I'm here for. And number 3, I don't know. I enjoy video editing. I like it. It's fun to edit. I want to add a lot more sparkles. You can look at my first videos that I've done. There's a lot more sparkly editing effects than there are now. Right now, I'll probably just cut this and get it up because I don't have time. Number 2, let's see. Who are 3 booktubers from whom you learned the most about making booktube videos? Don't use this question to kiss arse. Tell us who are consistently delivering value and making good quality videos. What are you trying to say? That I don't think all booktubers are producing good quality videos? Oh, well, let's not do that again. So I picked 3. I think Captured in Words does really great stuff. I think most of his stuff is just pretty editing that we all enjoy and love to watch, but also his discussions and his recommendations. His videos come out like once every couple months, but the reason is that there's a lot of effort put into them. I think Cam at Wolfshot Publishing, Cam Wolfshot. I think his videos are great too. He adds a bit of levity to the thing and gets some chuckles out of everybody. His videos are kind of well thought out and well edited as well. Then the one and only Murphy Napier. I think most of the people in SFF know her. She does really great stuff. Rachel from the Shades of Orange. She has really great content. Her and I think, have the most, I would like to get into more horror. She's more of the horror person, but the sci-fi stuff that she reads is more along the sci-fi stuff that I have read or would like to read. And she puts out great content too. And then the grand godfather of SFF Booktube is Thomas from SFF 180. He was probably another one of the ones that I'd watched when I had started the most. His reviews were well thought out. So I know he has a blog on the side where he kind of writes out all of his reviews, and those are well put together. Comparatively, so those are 3 or 4 booktubers. And number 3, what are 3 things that made it difficult for your channel to grow at a better pace? The time it takes for me to come up with discussion topics and kind of sound coherent about them. I feel like that's something that makes it difficult. Is just the time, the planning, and I think not reading any of the quote-unquote trendy books I mean, some of the books that I've read and put up reviews for, end up being on like a Goodreads Choice Award, or some of the ones I had were up in the Hugo noms and stuff like that. But so they are popular in that aspect, but I think they're not as popular Booktube community aspect wise. So I feel like there's a good. I feel like they're not popular at the time when I read them and review them. I don't see a lot of people on Booktube talking about them. But then after the fact, maybe they get more speed at the end. So I think that's hindered my growth, obviously, is to not jump on all those type of things. So yeah, all right. See you next time. Bye-bye. Greetings, invaders. My name is Scott. This is a new day, a new errand to run. So I'm going to try to do some more Q&A answering while I drive, because that's always fun. I should splice this in the middle of my other video, so I don't know why I'm doing my greeting. But anyway, moving on to more questions. This one is from Dro at Dro Talks Audiobooks. Hey Dro, thanks for watching. Let's see here. His question is, what is my guilty pleasure audiobook? I think, well, there was one book that I read just to hear the narrator. I listened to it on like a nonfiction November or something last year, and that was Scrappy Little Nobody by Anna Kendrick, narrated by the author. I'm just a big Anna Kendrick fan. She's awesome and snarky, and I'm not, well, whatever. But I just thought that I would check out her little book. It was a short read about her getting into the show businesses and growing up and playing all these multitudes of Annie on Broadway and her family and so on. It wasn't very deep or illuminating. It was just something that was interesting. So I remember listening to that. And she talked about, in the book, she mentioned the movie Rocket Science, which was the indie film that she had really early on, which I think is an awesome movie. I mentioned that before. Go check out Rocket Science. I don't think it's streaming anywhere, but you'll probably have to buy it and rent it. So next question comes from Jason at Jason's Weird Reads. Hey Jason, thanks for watching. What do your wife and kids think of your YouTube video making habit? Well, they're not against it, but they're not really supportive of it, and I'm very cognizant of not putting my video creation habits in front of any of my family obligations. Like, there are times where I have to ask, the wife to watch the kids if I did like the interview I did with Josiah Bancroft. It was on a weekend, but I try to put that at a very minimum, and I record videos in my car like this. And I used to be able to record videos at home if the wife and kids are out on errands, but they don't really leave the house anymore. So I do it in a way where it doesn't impede any of their time, and I don't want to have to say no to them and put them secondary to me making a book review or a silly video. And then maybe that's different for other people. For me, it's a habit, and I want to watch my channel grow and be successful. And I know that if I really want to take this thing seriously, I'm going to have to cut down time with them at some point in some aspects, and I don't want to have to do that, because then it'll just cause friction, and I don't want that. So I just kind of do it when I can. That has the least impact to my time with them. Next question comes from Timmy at the channel Lost Cunningham. This says, how many and what kinds of guitars do you own? I own 3 guitars. I have a Fender acoustic guitar. I have an Ibanez electric guitar and an Epiphone bass guitar. And I also have 3 amps. I have a small little Fender Mustang amp, I think it's called. And then for my bass amp, I have like an acoustic 110 or something like that. Acoustic is the brand. And then I have a big like crate amp that doesn't really work very well because it's old and I don't use it, so I might get rid of it. But I have 3 guitars. I used to have other ones. I used to have an Alvarez acoustic. I used to have a Fender Stratocaster. And then I used to have this really like crappy homemade electric guitar. I don't know what kind it was. But yeah, 3 guitars. I don't really play that much anymore. I try to pick it up when my kids want to have a rock band. They pick up the ukulele and like their plastic little guitar, and they say, "Dad, we're going to start a rock band." And we all just kind of jam out, and they just play as loudly and as crazy as they can. Or they pick up like a bongo drum and they go bonkers, and it's all just a big racket, which is fun. I love it. Next question comes from David DeCero from the channel of the same name, I believe. It says, "What is one horror novel more people should read?" And number 2, what has been the most rewarding part about making a Booktube channel? Assuming, of course, that it is rewarding. Yeah. So one horror novel I think everyone should read probably would be Coyote Songs by Gabino Iglesias. I thought that book was very intense, very kind of vivid and brutal at the same time, but it also kind of sends a message about like the immigration and things people go to get here, and the horrors that they endure, the way that they're treated in a kind of phantasmagorical setting way. It's called Barrio Noir, and it's also kind of horror. So it takes place around the border area between Mexico and the United States, and I thought it was really good. I don't gravitate towards horror that much. There's maybe a handful of stuff that I've read since starting the channel, and before that I hadn't really read horror at all. I mean, you know, I've read books like Paul Tremblay's Cabin at the End of the World and Bird Box. Some of those other kind of just off-the-shelf horror books. But I think Coyote Songs was a great novel, and it's pretty short, so you can pick it up, support indie author. So the second question was, what has been the most rewarding part of making a Booktube channel? I think being kind of, I don't know, not really a legacy, but it's just kind of having something out there that gives you a wider audience than your circle of friends. Like, I had never started a YouTube channel before. I'd never done YouTube before now. I kind of had a blog, and I had done music stuff, and I'd gotten interviews with bands that were just kind of via email. But I think the most rewarding part is having that visibility, having the feedback, and also being able to reach out to these authors and having a conversation with them and having them kind of be familiar with you instead of going into something blind and not knowing, and the author not knowing who you are. They can kind of view your YouTube videos, get a feeling for your persona, and it's more of a connection than if it would be just to like writing an article and I go to interview an author face to face and they don't know anything about me just because of it may not come across in words on a page. But if they go to like a YouTube channel, they could see a video, they get to know kind of your feeling, your you know, your personality, so to speak, and having that connection, be able to reach out to an author and just say, hey, can I talk to you about some books that you wrote? And then they're like, sure, and then you set up a video call and it's all good to go. So that, I mean, the interview I'd just done with Josiah Bancroft was amazing. I mean, I had ranted and raved about his books for so long, and then I just reached out to him to do a video interview, and it was just like, it's that simple, really. And it was just it was so fun that I just got to kind of talk to the author like that. So that was very rewarding to me. That would be one of my highlights of my Booktube career for sure. All right, next question comes from Ramsey at Rajathan. He asks, have you ever gone skydiving? And I asked him, I said, do you think that I have gone skydiving? And he said, maybe, but the answer is no. I have not gone skydiving. They have an indoor skydiving place in town here that I think my wife had almost gotten me like a certificate or session for my birthday one year. Indoor skydiving, which is just like they set up a big wind tunnel inside that you can kind of jump into and you start floating around. And I thought that might be pretty fun just to go try it. Do I want to go skydiving? Maybe. If I do go skydiving, will it scare the absolute you-know-what out of me? Probably. I think it would be fun. I think it would be awesome. I haven't done anything like that crazy before. I've gone like parasailing once, where you're just being towed by a boat and you're up in a parachute or whatever it's called, parasail. But skydiving is taking that up to another level. So I don't know. I think I would be up for it if somebody were to be like, hey, I know a guy who can take us skydiving and it's all professional. But the part where you probably have to like sign the waivers and the injury and the lawsuit stuff before you go up in the plane would probably stuff would be going through my mind at that point to be like, do I really want to go through with this? But I think I would. A tandem skydive. I wouldn't do it by myself because I don't know how to land that thing in a thicket of bushes or a forest of pine trees. Who knows? So no, I haven't ever gone skydiving. Do I want to go skydiving? Yeah, probably. I'll up for it. I did. I was up in a hot air balloon because out in the desert here they have hot air balloons, but that's obviously like this sloth version of skydiving because you're in a balloon. All right. Moving on. Next question is from Kathy at Kathy Trithard. I don't know. Sorry, Kathy. Thanks for watching. Thanks for the question. Her question is, what is the best book with a dragon in it? Ah, shucks. How many books have I even read with a dragon in? There's The Hobbit, Smaug. But we'll forgive that answer because that's just a cop-out answer. I would say Kings of the Wild, but it's a wyvern, not a dragon. There's a difference. I think there's dragons in there too. What other book did I have? Was there I think there was a dragon in Kill the Farm Boy, which is just a crazy fantasy book. Kill the Farm Boy by Kevin Hearn and Delilah Dawson, which is just kind of like the two authors getting drunk and making silly innuendos and silly world-building fantasy tropes and just flipping them on their heads and making a book about it. It's supposed to be like a trilogy. There's supposed to be 3 books. So it's about the farm boy who is supposed to be the chosen one, but it ends up being a talking goat or something. They cover that in like the first 2 chapters. No spoilers. Whatever. There might be a dragon in that. I know there was like a giant and a cyclops. What other books had dragons in it? I'll think of something. Maybe on my next answering session. All right. Next question is Veronica Garcia. She says, where do you buy your books in Arizona? Maybe after quarantine I could go and get the good ones, I hope. Yeah, maybe. So here, I don't live there's not, since Arizona is kind of newly built on most of their shopping, there's not really an abundance of little indie bookshops. There's one that I know of in Scottsdale called The Poison Pen, which is a really cool, it was built on like those murder mystery mass market paperback books is kind of what they sell the most of, the Danielle Steele, books. But they have a good selection of everything. when you walk in, they have a whole section dedicated to just first edition hardcovers, and I love that because that's what I go after the most. Is if I find a book and I get it on audio and it just blows me away, I want to get the first edition hardcover. And they have a lot of signed copies. They have a lot of author events. They bring a lot of authors to town. They get authors from the ones that have been to like the Comic-Con that comes to Arizona. They have an event where they pull the authors into the store there, and they do a big signing session kind of the day before Comic-Con. So one year they brought in Pierce Brown, Brandon Sanderson, Patrick Rothfuss, V. Schwab, John Scalzi. They had all those guys in that store just for free at a free signing session like the day before Comic-Con. Sam Sykes was there. Kevin Hearn was there too. Mike Cole, I believe, was there. And so that place is pretty awesome for doing that. And they have a small sci-fi section, but it's sci-fi too that isn't just the top 40 sellers. They have a good selection. So that's where I try to go as much as possible, but that's probably the furthest bookshop away from where I live. So when I go there, it's a trip, and I better find something good, which I usually do. All right, next question is, knowing what you know now about running a Booktube channel, if you were to go back now and just start your channel, what, if anything, would you do differently? Also, did you watch any other YouTube content besides Booktube? Well. Yeah, I think the videos that I made when I first started my channel, I did like 5 or 6 book reviews. Because, so I watched Booktube maybe for 1 or 2 months before I just jumped in and said, hey, I want to do this too. So I watched a very small amount of channels. I didn't go deep into the community. I watched, I looked up books that I liked. I started there, so I looked up what was on my shelf. I found some books that I really liked, and I looked at the results of who reviewed them. And I was like, okay, so there's maybe like 1 or 2 for this book. There's nobody for this book. There's nobody for this book, and there's 1 or 2 for this book. And I was having trouble finding people who had talked about the book, because my frustration was that everything was buried under wrap-ups or buried under TBRs, and I couldn't find something just by title alone. You would have to sift through wrap-ups who didn't put book titles in the descriptions, so you didn't know whether or not they mentioned it or why it came up as a search result. And nobody shows the book covers on their thumbnails. And so when I started, I was frustrated. I was angry. I was like, why? This isn't working for people outside of the book community that want to find information about a specific book. Like, this whole thing it seems like it's all catering to itself, which is a growing community, and fine, you can grow that way, but it's then, if you cater your content to the people within the community, then they tell their friends. You kind of can grow that way, where somebody may do something. But otherwise, for recreational readers such as myself, if I go into YouTube, which I don't think people typically look at YouTube for book reviews, they just type it into Google, and if you get a video result, so be it, but usually you don't. So that's how I kind of got it started. As I went through YouTube and I searched for book titles specifically, I didn't find any results. I didn't find discussions about the books. I found things that were confusing to me, being outside of the community, as far as why aren't people doing it this way, and I felt like it was a disservice to the readers, and so I was frustrated. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to start my channel. I'm going to do 4 or 5 book reviews right off the bat. Boom, boom, boom. And then I'm going to do the Booktube newbie tag, because when you get into a newbie tag, it doesn't tell you anything about the typical videos that the person's going to do. So coming right off the bat with the newbie tag is just like, okay, you're a newbie. what are you going to give people? What am I going to get from you? Because everybody does the tag the same way. So give me something unique. And so I wanted to have those kind of things out on my channel prior to doing the newbie tag. So I could say, okay, here's a newbie tag. Let me click on his channel. Oh, look, he's doing 4 or 5 book reviews. And then most people just probably ran to the hills and said, screw this guy. But some people liked it. And you know, then I think starting my channel a different way, I don't think I would have done it like that. I think my original newbie tag came out of a sense of frustration and ignorance on my part, because I came out of the gate angry and I was like, why aren't people doing any book reviews? All I see are wrap-ups in the halls. I don't see discourse about texts, and I don't see discussion videos about books. I see, you know, people spending 2 or 3 minutes talking about a book, saying it's great, they loved it, and moving on. And all the non-bookish videos on Booktube channels made me frustrated, because, you know, what do I know? But putting that out there also kind of illuminated some people's views too, and yeah, the people didn't like it and all that stuff, but there were some people who did agree and felt the same way. But it became clear to me right off the bat, and I learned it very quickly, that the community here is definitely a force united, and there definitely is kind of a Venn diagram of audiences and of creators, and that, you know, there's a very small overlap of pieces to these things, like, you know. Anyway, so I think I stick with my strategy for starting the channel. I want to focus my stuff on book reviews. I just enjoy the longevity of those type of things. I will throw in, you know, a couple TBRs, and I'll throw in like a wrap up here, just because now I don't have time to spend on book reviews for everything I read. And if I do a quick reading session very, very rapidly, then I'll do a big wrap up kind of at the end of that. So that's what I learned. I think so the other YouTube content, I hadn't really watched any YouTube content before I started. The channels that I watched before I started my channel were just Booktube channels. Like, I didn't follow PewDiePie or Mr. Beast or whatever the hell those things are, and I still don't watch those things. So I'm very just kind of looped into the book community I don't watch very much any trendy or crazy top YouTube channels. So I didn't know a lot about capturing audiences. I just knew what I wanted the videos to be for me, and then I just went in and did it. So that was just my experience. Next question is from Luosity. Luosity asks, what is the most important thing you've learned throughout your Booktube/YouTube journey? And number 2, thoughts on Booktubers in the Eastern Hemisphere of the world. Any favorites? Anyone you know? Well, let's see. Most important thing that I've learned throughout my journey is just to, I don't know, I would say, you know, be honest with your own content. Don't try to make it into something that it's not, because it's going to cause burnout. So I feel like making the videos that I want to watch has worked best for me. And the other thing is just to not let the pressure or the not to let the pressure of putting out content force you into having to stress about it, or don't focus on the numbers and all that kind of stuff. So it's definitely a new environment for me because I haven't done any YouTube stuff before. So, and then the way that I see it is because being a father in a family with kids, I can't let this be a full-time gig. I have to manage my time. I have to put my YouTube endeavors secondary to family stuff. So if I don't have time to make a video, and if I don't hit one a week or whatever, like, I'm not gonna freak out about it, because the content's there and people are discovering new videos all the time. So so be it. I'm not aggressive in my content, I guess. It's very casual. I'm just going to be hanging out and doing it when I can do it. So that was just like, I would like to spend more time and do it a lot, but that's going to come at a cost that I don't want to have to spend. So Booktubers in the Eastern Hemisphere of the world, that I don't know. This guy named Velocity is pretty great. Go check out his channel. There are a lot of other ones that I watch that are not obviously based in the United States, and maybe I will tag them down below. I don't know. Next question comes from the channel Geek on My Sleeve. I wear my geek on my sleeve. Let's see. They asked, do you go back and reread, listen to books, and if so, which ones? I don't very much. I would like to do more when I have time. I could probably be doing one right now when I'm driving and should be listening to a book, but I'll get this out for you guys. The one I've re-listened to probably would be Ready Player One, because after I read it early when it came out, there was a podcast called Get to the Good Parts podcast who went through a reread of Ready Player One, and each podcast episode was on a different chapter. And so I followed them talking about it and kind of re-listened to it myself. And then I while I was doing that, I was kind of taking very Ready Player One-esque notes about the story. And so I was being like Wade Watts does to Anorak's Almanac. I was treating Ready Player One as my almanac, and I have a spreadsheet of like little tidbits and trivia on it that I just made up for myself because I'm just a big nerd. So that's one. I think I've listened to parts of Red Rising multiple times. I haven't done a full reread, but I would just stick on like a few of the chapters to get myself refreshed in the plots and the action that takes place. But those might be the only ones that I've done that for. I would like to do that more, just to get these books really kind of cemented in my brain, because I feel like that's good for discussion purposes and whatnot. Next question comes from Michael Nip. Hey, Michael. Thanks for watching. Everyone go check out Michael Nip's channel as well. What is a book you still feel like you need to vent some hate about? It's a therapy question. I don't... what did I do a bad review? I did a poor review about the book Ancillary Justice, because as many awards as that book had won, I had expected just a lot more out of that book than what it really gave me. And I feel like the promise that those Hugo Awards and Nebula Awards, the promise that they give me as a reader, were very like, oh wow, this is really, awesome and groundbreaking stuff. But I felt like I was cheated out of a good story for following a really flat robotic android character and a convoluted multi POV / something type of plot. I don't know. Like, I understood part of it, and again, as a reader and as an audiobook listener, it doesn't perform well on audio, I feel, because there are sentences that you kind of have to ruminate over a couple times before you can really get a grasp for it. So I feel like I've vented enough about that book. Another book that I didn't enjoy as much, I don't think I really need to spout hate about it, was Station 11. You know, I felt like that was very... I felt like the backstory of those characters really ruined the pace for that book for me. Like, I wanted to hear about their little quest and their adventure. I didn't want to hear about the past of any of these characters. Really, and I felt kind of bored during those segments of the book. Another book that I think I needed to vent about. I don't know. Oh, I don't know. I feel like when I read Lock-In by John Scalzi, which I really like all of his stuff, that book really didn't do it that great for me. And I thought I had read somewhere that he had written some type of like crime novel just on a dare to tell for another author that said that he couldn't do it or something like that. And I was like, come on, don't just... Like, the book was great, I mean, for what it was. But if this is just you're writing a book out of a dare and to spite someone else, you know, it didn't feel like there was... His passion wasn't in it. Anyway, I don't have much book therapy stuff because I tend to find the things that I like to read. I can kind of gauge if I'm going to like something before I pick it up. Who knows? The next question is from the channel The Life of Simon. Thanks, Simon. His question is, if you could meet any fictional character from a book, who would it be, and what one question would you ask them? Oh, brother. I don't know. I'll get back to you. I'm almost at my stop. Maybe I'll answer that one next time. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hey, guys. Scott's back again. I'm in my office. You can kind of see the opposite wall of where I film. There's my guitars on the wall there, the bass and the electric. My amps are on the floor, but it's a big mess of clothes and stuff, so we'll spare that. So I was still thinking about the last question from my other video, the question from The Life of Simon that says, if you can meet any fictional character from a book, who would it be, and what one question would you ask them, which is an incredibly difficult question. So I tried to think about books that were mysterious, that kind of had an unanswered question in it, or that some, like the ending of Lost in Translation comes to mind, where Bill Murray like whispers something into her ear and nobody ever knows what it is. I was trying to think of something like that, where is there a piece of a book that there's that kind of mystery. And I looked at my shelf, and I probably should go through some of my audiobooks and find something, but that would probably take forever. So I just kind of went with an easy option to say, from We Sold Our Souls by Grady Hendrix, I would probably ask Chris to have a jam session and just come over, hang out, plug in our amps, plug in our guitars, and rock the night away. Hopefully without opening any gates to demonic worlds and letting in demons. Not very deep, I know. There's probably a lot of characters I would like to sit and talk with. Like, there's the Sphinx from Stenlin Ascends, an arm of the Sphinx. Excuse me, and the alien race people in the Themis Files series. I would go talk to the character from Dark Matter by Blake Crouch and say, let me get into that world where I can the hallway full of doors and go traverse different universes of this. I don't know. I would like to be a fly on the wall for a lot of these stories, I think. So it's really difficult to nail down one question. But there's a lot of characters that would be cool to have over for dinner. Maybe bring Darrow and Severo over for a nice evening sit down and some nice afternoon tea. Huh? You think that would go well? That probably wouldn't go well. That's a tough one. If you guys have an answer off the top of your head that you would absolutely want to meet a fictional character and a question you would ask, let me know. There's a ton of possibilities, but that one was a tough one for me, and maybe I'll think of one when I get done filming this. But my last and final question comes from Eric at Break Even Books. Eric asks, "What is my favorite song?" Really? That is a difficult one too. As I probably mentioned before, being like a music blogger, and I worked at a record store, which I feel like I say that too much. I don't know. My catalog is vast and deep. There are a lot of songs that I will binge on for weeks at a time that are probably just gems from my own catalog. There's a song called Now by the band Push Monkey, which is absolutely phenomenal. There's a song called I'm a Cloud by Boy Hits Car. There's a song called Settle by a band called The Racer, which is a very awesome slow build song talking about not living up to other people's expectations and settling on something, to not let their perceptions of you make you settle for something that you don't want. That's a great song. There's a song called 3, just in Roman numeral 1, 2, 3 by the band Athletics, which is also amazing. There's just, those deep cuts are the ones that I probably seek out the most. But then there's, 46 and 2 by Tool. Welcome to the Machine by Pink Floyd is one of my favorites. It's tricky. Perfect Machine by the band Starset are the ones that I will just gravitate towards. Oh, there's a band a band called Sages has a song called I think it's called Come With Me, and it is an awesome track too. A band called Of Us Giants has a song called Liar, which is awesome. So there are a bunch of stuff probably that you guys have not heard of, but you should listen to it and seek out because they're amazing. But anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for subscribing. I think that answers all of my 800 Q&A questions. I don't know how long this video is going to be, but it will probably be too long. But thanks for sticking around. I hope there will be many more milestones, and I hope I can do more Q&A sessions. I hope I can do more interviews, book reviews, and discussions soon. Thanks for watching.